Adaugo and Ezinne had been best friends for as long as anyone could remember. From their childhood, they spent chasing each other through the dusty streets of their village, to their teenage years, studying hard under the same dim lamp in their parents' modern house. They were inseparable. They had dreamed of success, of making something out of themselves in the big city, and most importantly, of always being there for each other. After graduating from university, they both found good jobs, though life had started steering them down different paths. Adaugo was quickly noticed for her grace and beauty, catching the eyes of Emeka, the wealthiest and most sought-after businessman in the city. Emeka was not only rich, but kind, handsome, and generous, a man every woman dreamed of marrying. It wasn't long before Emeka proposed, and Adaugo accepted, her heart full of love. Ezinne, on the other hand, had her own accomplishments, but as she watched Adaugo life seemingly take a fairy tale turn, the seed of jealousy began to sprout in her heart. She had been happy when Adaugo introduced her to Emeka, standing by her side as the maid of honor on the wedding day. But as the months rolled on, the bitterness grew. Ezinne had no serious relationship, no lavish house, and no fairy tale life. Why should Adaugo, who had always been her equal, now have more than her? The turning point came at a dinner party held at Adaugo's new mansion. It was an extravagant evening, filled with laughter, the finest foods, and expensive gifts. Ezinne stood by the corner, clutching a glass of wine, her eyes narrowing as she watched Adaugo standing next to Emeka, laughing and glowing in the midst of their guests. The mansion was a symbol of Adaugo's new life, a life that Ezinne felt should have been hers. As Emeka leaned in to kiss Adaugo's cheek, Ezinne's hand tightened around her wine glass until her knuckles turned white. Why her? The thought echoed in her mind. What does she have that I don't? That night, as Ezinne laid in her own modest apartment, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't sleep. The bitterness gnawed at her heart, and no matter how much she tried to push it away, it only grew stronger. She tried to silence the voice in her head that told her that life was unfair, that she deserved everything Adaugo had. But it was too late. The seed of envy had already taken roots. Weeks passed, and Ezinne's resentment blistered like an open wound. She avoided visiting Adaugo, claiming to be busy with work, though the truth was that she couldn't bear to see her friend's happiness. The once close bond they shared was closely eroding, with Ezinne putting more distance between them. Adaugo, noticing the change, reached out several times, concerned about her friend, but Ezinne always brushed it off with excuses. One fateful evening, Ezinne, driven by her fleeting anger and jealousy, sought the advice of an old woman known for her spiritual power. She had heard whispers about the woman from her childhood, tales of the dark magic, and how she could bend fate with her spells. Ezinne hesitated at first, unsure if she was truly ready to cross that line, but the envy burned too deeply now. She needed to take action to level the playing field. The old woman's house was hidden deep in the outskirts of the city, surrounded by thick forest. Ezinne approached it nervously, her heart pounding in her heart. The air around the house felt heavy, and though even nature itself held its breath in fear of the dark magic that resided there. Ezinne knocked on the door, her hands trembling slightly. The woman answered with a slow click on the door, her eyes sharp and piercing beneath her wrinkled brow. She said nothing as Ezinne explained her situation, but when Ezinne mentioned her desire to bring misfortune to Adaugo, the old man's thin lip curled into a knowing smile. "You wish to break her?" the old woman asked, her voice like dry leaf rustling in the wind. Ezinne hesitated, but then nodded. "I want her to suffer. I want her to lose everything." The old man moved to a shelf, her bony fingers hovering over a collection of strange items, bottle filled with dark liquid animal bones, and dry herbs. She put down a small twisted charm made of black thread and animal teeth. Place this under her pillow, the old woman instructed, handing Ezinne the charm. She will wet her bed every night. No matter how much wealth or power she has, this shame will bring her down. Her husband will abandon her, and her perfect life will crumble. Ezinne stared at the charm, her stomach chugging with a mix of anticipation and fear. And it will work? The old man nodded, but her eyes gleamed with a warning. But remember, child, what you sow you shall reap. Dark deeds do not come without consequences. Ignoring the old man cautions, Ezinne paid her and left, clutching the charm tightly in her hand. She could already imagine the shame that would envelope Adaugo, how her perfect life would unravel, and how Emeka and everyone would see her as a disgrace. Ezinne's heart raced with excitement. The next day, Ezinne visited Adaugo's mansion, pretending everything was fine. Adaugo welcomed her with open hand, grateful to reconnect after a week of distance. Ezinne smiled, pretending to be the friend Adaugo remembered, all the while planning on how to plant the charm. That evening, as they laughed and reminisced about their old time, Ezinne excused herself to the bathroom. On her way back, she slipped into Adaugo's bedroom, carefully placing the charm under her pillow. The following morning, Adaugo woke up in confusion. The bed was wet and she had no explanation for it. Mortified, she cleaned it up quickly, hoping it was just a one-time accident. But the same thing happened the next night and the night after. No matter what she did, she could not stop wetting the bed. Shame consumed her. How could this be happening to her, a grown woman in her prime, married to one of the most powerful men in the city? Emeka at first was concerned but compassionate. He comforted Adaugo, telling her it was just stress and that they would figure it out. But as days turned into weeks and the incident continued, his patience began to wear thin. His mother, Ngoma, was less understanding. She had never fully approved of Adaugo and now had the perfect excuse to berate her. This is disgraceful, Ngoma is one morning when she discovered the soaked bed sheets. You are a grown-up woman. How can you be behaving like a child? My son deserves better than this. Adaugo was crushed. She had no explanation for what is happening, but the constant shame was eating away her spirit. She felt as though she was losing everything, her dignity, her marriage, and now even her sanity. Emeka grew distant, no longer a loving husband who had once adored her. He was embarrassed and frustrated, and under pressure from his mother, he eventually asked Adaugo to leave the house until she got herself together. Adaugo returned to her family home in tears. Her once perfect life shattered. She felt cursed, unable to understand why such terrible fate had befallen her. But she had no idea that her best friend Ezinne was behind it all. Months passed and Adaugo's reputation suffered. Rumors spread in the city about her mysterious condition, and people whispered about how Emeka had sent her away. Meanwhile, Ezinne watched from a distance, satisfied that her plan had worked. But as she enjoyed her success, strange things began happening to her as well. Ezinne started having nightmares, dark, terrifying dreams where she was drowning in water, unable to escape. Every night, the nightmare grew worse, until one evening, she woke up to find her own bed soaked. At first, she thought it was just sweat, but the wetness didn't stop. Night after night, she experienced the shameful condition she had inflicted on Adaugo. Terrified, Ezinne returned to the old man in the forest, demanding an explanation. But the old man simply smiled, her eyes cold. I want you, child. You will give, you also will receive. Ezinne's life spiraled out of control. She had lost her job, Due to her erratic behavior and consistent lateness from her sleepless nights, she had been paranoid, haunted by the guilt of what she had done to Adaugo. The shame and embarrassment that she had wished upon her friend had come back to consume her. Meanwhile, back at her family house, Adaugo had sought help of a pastor to pray over her situation. After a week of prayer and fasting, the charm that had been placed under her pillow was discovered. When it was removed, the bedwetting stopped immediately, and Adaugo felt a great weight lift from her shoulder. She knew that someone had been behind her suffering, but she wasn't sure who. Yet, with her newfound peace, she decided not to dwell on revenge. Instead, she focused on rebuilding her life and her marriage with Emeka, who, after realizing the truth, welcomed her with open arms. As for Ezinne, her guilt became too much to bear. She could no longer live with the burden of what she had done. Her nights were filled with torment of her own actions, and her days were haunted by shame. The night persisted, and the wetting continued. No matter how hard she tried to get rid of the curse, it seemed like the universe had turned against her, trapping her in the very humiliation she had wished on her closest friend. One day, in a moment of desperation, Ezinne showed up at Adaugo's doorstep, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes soaking from lack of sleep. Adaugo, who had begun to restore her life and happiness with Emeka, was surprised to see her old friend standing there, trembling with fear. Adaugo, Ezinne whispered, her voice shaky. "I am so sorry. I am the one who caused all of this. I was jealous of you. I couldn't stand seeing you happy, so I went to a witch and cursed you." Adaugo stood in shock. Her eyes turned between anger and pity. Tears welled up in Ezinne's eyes as she fell to her knees. "Please forgive me. I can't live like this anymore. The curse, it has come back to me and I have lost everything." The room was silent, except for the sound of Ezinne's sobbing. Adaugo's heart ached. This was the friend she had once loved so dearly, now broken and destroyed by her own jealousy. Emeka, standing beside Adaugo, looked at her with a raised eyebrow, as if waiting to see what she would do. After a long pause, Adaugo knelt beside Ezinne. "I forgive you," she said softly, "not because you deserve it, but because I want peace in my heart." Ezinne looked up, her eyes wide in disbelief. "Thank you. I am so sorry." But no sooner had she uttered those words than she began to scream. Her body shook violently, and she clutched her head, crying out in agony. But before Adaugo or Emeka could react, Ezinne's scream turned into incoherent blabbing. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed onto the floor, whistling in a fit. It was as if though the guilt and dark magic had finally consumed her mind. Ezinne was rushed to a nearby hospital, but it was too late. Her mind had shattered. She had become a shadow of her former self, wandering the streets of the city, mumbling nonsense and crying out in despair. She had to pay the ultimate price for her jealousy. And as for Adaugo, her life slowly returned to normal. Emeka stood by her side, and they rebuilt their love, stronger than before. The shame that had once plagued her house was gone, and she moved forward with a heart filled with gratitude and forgiveness. In the end, Adaugo lived happily ever after, her heart free from the chains of resentment. The moral lesson of this story is that jealousy is a dangerous emotion that can consume and destroy not only its target, but also the person who harbors it. Dark intentions and envy often come back to haunt those who wish ill upon others. True happiness comes from contentment and love, not from coveting what belongs to someone else. Forgiveness, though difficult, brings peace, while bitterness only leads to self-destruction. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it and I hope you all learned something from this video. Please kindly hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I post new videos. And also, don't forget to like this video and comment under this video what you think about this story. And I'll see you in another of my video. Bye.